Hello, winning season fam. We are in for such a treat today. I have Hermence Matsotsa joining us. She is an author, she is a global leadership expert, she is a global health expert. And one of the things that makes me really excited about speaking with her, I've known her for over a decade. So
Wow.
we met when we were 2 days old,
Yes.
just so y'all know. Hermance, welcome to Winning Season, the podcast.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. This has been, yeah, I'm so excited to be here with you. And yes, it has been over a decade, and we look as young as we met, the day we met.
Period. Period. So I want to get into your journey and just kind of unpack your story. Where do you feel comfortable starting telling us who you are?
Oh my. We can start about the fact that I'm a product of two individuals who were from diverse cultures,
What do you mean by
upbringing.
diverse cultures?
When I say that, my mother's Gabonese from Central Africa, and my father's American from the West Coast, from Oregon, Medford, Oregon, to be precise. And he was a Peace Corps volunteer,
Mhm.
and he traveled. He was assigned to Gabon, and that's where he met my mother. This beautiful Gabonese woman from the village of Kulamutu, so a small village in Gabon. And their story, as I'm told, is that they were the two individuals that should not have been together, broke all cultural, social norms to be together, political norms too, and they made a decision that they were going to forget everybody else, be together, and I'm the product of that.
What
So,
a beautiful love story.
yes.
And so you have these incredible parents. Tell us a little bit more about your mother.
Oh my mother, as I said, she's a strong, beautiful Gabonese woman who actually, when I talk about love story, as she tells it, at the age of 12, she was a child bride, given to someone 50 years old, right?
Mhm.
And she was determined that that wasn't going to be her life. And so she fought and she fought. So when she met my father, she met him during the time that she had ran away from her assigned husband.
Yeah.
And she said that must have been like the 30th time she had ran away. And so my mother is someone who always knew that she was more than her environment
Right.
and her circumstance, and fought every way, educated herself. She talks about my older sister, her first child at the age of 13, and she was pulled out of school and she refused. And so she would go and sit underneath the schoolhouse and listen to the lessons as she was breastfeeding her daughter at the age of 13 and 14 years old. And then she would run away, get caught, get beaten, but then go right back. And so my mother knew that her life was more than, again, the environment, the circumstance, every cultural norm that was placed on her. And she said she was like, she always knew that she would give birth to people who would rise further, who would, and so that's who she is.
And you are in this beautiful family.
Yes.
Let's jump into your story. So that's origin with parents. Take me to your early career, and let's
Mm.
start right at the cusp of like your education.
Yeah. I was always someone who, like, my mother told me, you choose your destiny. Like, you choose what you want your life to be. Like, you can't let anybody else dictate your life.
And
And so
tell
for
us your
me,
mother's name.
oh, Vivian or
Vivian.
Flavienne, yes.
Yes.
And she was adamant. So I was one of the kids who I would be like, Mom, I want to be a pilot. Okay. I wanted to be so many things. But the one thing that I realized with me was that I wanted to be someone of service. It was always about someone of service. And so I followed in my father's footsteps and joined the Peace Corps myself, where I became a teacher. And not just any teacher, but I was a health education teacher. It was during the rise of HIV/AIDS, and particularly in Africa. And because I had lost my favorite uncle to HIV, I knew that that was my calling. Like I was supposed to be of service and teach other people how to prevent HIV. So that is really how my career started as a Peace Corps volunteer for 3.5, about 3 years or so.
Yeah.
And once I completed Peace Corps in Togo, West Africa, I discovered global health. I discovered that I could not only be of service and be an educator, but I could really help frame global health and how global health in itself is essential for everyone, not just
Right.
this idea of public health in the United States, but all over the world. And that's how my career started. I came back, and even prior to that, I spun the globe. My finger landed on Ecuador while I was in college, and I went to Ecuador. I told my family after the fact that I was going to take a
You
year off.
literally spun a globe.
Literally spun a
I
globe.
just want to emphasize that for women in the community because I remember you when I first heard you say that years ago. Like, is this figurative or literal? You're like, no, it was literal.
Literally, I'll never forget. I was just I was like, why am I not grasping what I'm being taught here in school? Like I was in political science courses, I was in international affairs, and it seemed too superficial. And being the kinesthetic learner that I am, and then I thrive off of experiences and culture and people, I was just like, I need something new. And so literally I always had a globe in my dorm room, because that is me. I spun it and my finger literally, I said, close my eyes, boom, and it landed on Ecuador. And I was like, Ecuador? I had literally never heard of Ecuador really at all.
Yeah.
And then I told my friend, she was like, they speak Spanish there. I was like, okay. She was like, you don't speak Spanish. I was like, it's a language. It can be learned. And literally, she was like, so you're quitting school? I was like, I'm not quitting. I'm just going to put a pause on it. And I found a program and went to Ecuador for a whole year. And again, service,
Service.
reforestation. So I did reforestation work there.
And one of the things that in preparation for our conversation today, I was reading through conversations you had had and what things people say
Hmm.
about you. And I went through some of the LinkedIn comments of what folks describe you
Oh,
as. And
wow.
one of the things that stands out, your dedication to service. Obviously, that's
Hmm.
if anyone meets you, they know that it's ingrained in your DNA. It's
Yeah.
passed down from your father and
Hmm.
probably other generations that's in your
Exactly.
bloodline. So
Yeah.
your mindset towards Spanish was it can be learned.
It can be
Tell us
learned.
about the languages you speak and your approach
Yeah.
to
So,
learning.
I grew up no, in a bilingual home. So my mom spoke French. She also spoke English, but she really wanted us to learn French. And then my father, English. And it wasn't until my mother decided I needed to, at the age of 13, go back to Gabon and learn how to speak it. And so I understood, but I didn't speak French. And it's when I went there that I had to communicate with my cousins and my grandmother and all those people. And so I realized that in order for me to learn a language, I had to be quiet. I had to like really observe, pay attention, because communication is more than just verbal, right? It's body language, it's tone, it's just all of these things that come into play. And so my way of learning, I speak French, Spanish, of course, English, and then, I can understand Portuguese to a certain extent. But it was, languages, again, are learned. And then you've met a number of people who from Africa, from all over the world, Europe, where the idea of speaking 3, 4 languages is nothing.
Right?
Right? It's just
Yeah.
like I know people who 5 or 6 languages. It's
Right.
just being able to know how to switch. And so for me, it was important that whatever environment I found myself in, I could connect. And learning different languages allowed me to do that.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So you were in Ecuador. You spent
Hmm.
a year there
Yeah.
in a program. You learned a new language. You learned a
Hmm.
new culture. You learned about forest. Uh,
Yeah.
what else did you learn in that season of your life?
Oh my goodness. And mind you, I was 19 years old. No, was it 19? Yeah, I was 19, just turned 19, 18, oh, something like that. I
Wow.
learned that oftentimes we don't we don't understand that tapping into our power, right, requires being vulnerable,
Mm-hmm. I'm
right?
going to pause you for
And
a second
yeah,
because I think some people in the community might need an explanation of what it means to tap into your power.
right.
What do you mean by that?
Right. So when I mean by power is, or maybe power is not the word, but tapping into one's sense of self, right? Power, sage, like knowing,
Yeah.
tapping into, and so the Ecuador was the first time that I was by myself without my parents' support,
Hmm.
right? In another country, not knowing the language, not really knowing the culture at the time. And when I was there, I was the only African American, when I say moco choco chocolate child, individual. I felt like I was a child at that time with the group that I was there with. And I had to go, I experienced the how people viewed me before I understood how I viewed myself,
Wow.
right? And so I had to, because there was a lot, people viewed me in negative light because of their cultural experience, their political, being black, Afro, Afro Latinos or Afro Ecuadorians were not viewed at all favorably, right?
Right.
And so I knew that wasn't me, but I had to question why that was the case. So that meant being vulnerable enough to like have conversations with people who were like, who thought less of me,
Mm. That's
right?
a lot of bravery.
Yeah, I had to remember that I was not in the United States. I had to really step out and have more than just conversations, but I had to step out and be in spaces that were uncomfortable just so I could observe and understand how best to be in my comfortable in my own skin in those places. And so that is what Ecuador taught me. But it also taught me back to service because I was able to witness and give myself space to grapple with what I was experiencing when I was then placed in an Afro Ecuadorian community, which I found on my own. Um, I it was amazing, and I wanted to be able to then tell their story. So what my winning season, or what I learned from there, is that I can be a voice for people who are often unseen and often devalued, because what I did is I asked to be introduced to the oldest person in that community,
Hmm.
and that
Then
he
why
was
did you ask to be introduced to
99,
the oldest person?
because I wanted to know the history of the people, and I wanted to capture it. And I was the only one who seemed to be asking questions,
Hmm.
right? Obviously, so I was the foreigner, so I was the the, and I sat with this individual and recorded them telling the story of his people as he knew it. And once I recorded that, I had it transcribed, and I left them with a book, a history book of their people.
What a gift.
What a gift, right? And then I had that book, and I asked for that, the recording and everything to be shared to the library in Ecuador. And that was the first time that had been done. And I'll never forget, he asked me why. And I was like, because why not? People need to know who you are. And so that's when I realized that I can be not only of service, but I can also help others know who they, not who they are so much, but capture the story of a people that may not be known.
Right, and sharing that.
Exactly.
So, as we go through your career and journey, what happened next? You leave Ecuador,
I
and
leave
then,
I leave Ecuador, then I'm in Togo. I find myself in Togo less than a year later. And I am standing, I'll never forget, like I am in a room of 100 or so kids, and I'm standing on a table because I can't see all of them, trying to teach them how to protect themselves and doing condom demonstrations. That's like
and
literally, I
you're like
remember that
2021
scene.
at this point, right?
What'd you say?
Your age 2021.
Exactly at this time. And I'm seeing all these kids all in khakis, like the khakis, and I just remember that moment thinking to myself, if oh my gosh, if my mama could see me now, like similar to the same schoolhouses that she stood underneath breastfeeding her child and getting lessons, I was now the teacher.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah, I did that. And it was, it was like teaching. And I was the only female teacher in the whole community. And and so, we went to various different smaller villages, talked about HIV, condom demonstrations, talk just health education. And oftentimes it was really about empowering these young people and showing them how, because they had a voice, but how to use their voice to empower their community. And
Yes.
so my winning season during that whole time was being able to look from afar and see these young people just guiding the conversations, answering the questions that were being asked by their community members, and thinking to myself, I could disappear and they're going to continue this.
And then let's jump a little bit ahead where
Yeah.
you and I met at the Center for Disease Control
Yeah.
in Atlanta. How did you get to the CDC?
Oh wow. I laugh because it how I got there was like almost serendipity to some extent. So I came back, I had worked in Jamaica, I had worked in St. Lucia doing a lot of, global health work on my own, sometimes with Peace Corps. And then I came back when during the economic crisis that happened in, all over, and Jamaica said, we can't really afford to have you anymore, basically. So I came back without a job. And so I went to a temp agency and they looked at my resume. They're like, oh, you got all this global health. Have you ever thought about working with CDC? And mind you, I had partnered with CDC before
Right.
on the other side, but I had never worked for CDC. And so I was like, sure. And they're like, you mind being an administrative assistant to the communication director? And so I said, why not? The same day I got there, you know, I met him and he was like, this is not you. He was like, this is not you. He was like, I'm going to send you to Atlanta. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, I think you need to go to Atlanta. And so, he told me to go visit. And a friend of mine also was like, you need to come down. She was living here. And I met with the department. I met, with the program, and it was just easy. Like I've never received a job that I really didn't interview for.
So was your first entry point working inside the CDC global immunization?
Yes, it was the Stop Polio program. That was
Okay.
the first one. Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I didn't interview for it. I
Yeah.
mean, I met the director, and she, told me about the program, but it was just like it was meant for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that chapter, you're working in global health. You've worked in global health in different communities.
Hmm.
I'm really curious to know what is your approach to establishing trust because a lot of times you were the foreigner going
Yeah.
in. What do you think is that foundation of establishing trust with the community to then be able to speak to them about health?
Um, it's really about seeing the humanity in people. I really think, no, not think, I know that my success with working with communities all over the world and throughout my whole career and just life has been because I took the time to meet people where they were at and I saw the humanity in them. I never thought I was better, I never thought I was less. I saw kinship. I saw my brother in me, my sister in me, and I saw the humanity in people. And when I didn't know, I didn't lie or pretend that I didn't know. I was genuinely curious about what others knew because I knew that our relationship would be not reciprocal in the sense of like, I give you this and you give me that, but reciprocal in that we both had something to give to each other, right?
Yeah.
To pour into. And so that has been really my success. And, that's how I've been able to build trust because, I have this phrase I say, tell me more. Like I am genuinely curious about an individual and their life and what makes them who they are. And I know that people can see that genuine curiosity from me and the respect that I give. So being genuine, humble, right, and seeing the humanity in others will help build that trust. And I believe that that's what's happened.
And your company is called Ubuntu Speak.
Ubuntu speaks, and I always say otherwise known as Ubuntu,
Yes. Well,
but
and Ubuntu is how I refer to your company.
exactly, exactly.
For as long as I've known you, I have associated you with that word. So, can you kind of break down what was your introduction to
Yeah,
Ubuntu and also what it means?
yeah. So I grew up with the philosophy of Ubuntu. Now, my mother and father, they didn't use the word Ubuntu, but how we lived, how they wanted us to live life was all about Ubuntu. My mother was like, we were always, volunteering. We were always donating. My mother was the one who was like, wanted us to knock on doors and ask the elderly in our community if they needed something. And then we would go and then get it for them. And my mom would clean their house because she knew it was always like checking on people. It's about community. And
Right.
in Ubuntu, and so when I did my own, I fell in love with Archbishop Desmond Tutu and what he spoke about. Of course, the great Nelson Mandela. And my mother always talked about the two of them in South Africa. And then when Ubuntu, like I saw this word and I understood it as I am who I am because we all are. I was just like, oh, this is what my mother's been teaching us, and my mom and dad been teaching us this whole time, that I am intrinsically connected to everyone around me, and I need to value that, and so I realized I was seeing the humanity in people this whole time as well. And that is what Ubuntu is. It's, technically it's the South African philosophy of human interconnection. Literally, I am who I am because we are. And that this life cannot be lived to the fullest if we don't recognize and see that in each other, if we don't see the humanity in each other. And that's why when I decided to start my own company, I wanted that to be the foundation of it. I wanted to be known, people to be like, oh, that's Ubuntu, right? That's what she
Right.
embodies. And so, yeah.
So, again, I was doing all
Mhm.
this research just to make sure that I didn't come into the conversation with bias because I've known you so long.
Yeah, yes.
And I also felt so proud to read what others say about working with you. So before I jump into that, let's pause for a second. Tell us what your company does, the services that you offer.
Yeah, so my company, Ubuntu, or otherwise known as Ubuntu Speaks, we provide transformational leadership and services. And that means that I am able, and myself, and sometimes I bring in other people to come in and to assess your culture, your organizational culture and how you are actually leading your multicultural workforce, right? What strategies are you using? Are you creating a psychologically safe work environment? Are you conscious of the cultural competency or lack of that may exist and how that's hindering you from connecting with your global clients? So once we assess that, then I come in and I provide training, right, on psychological safety, how to create that space, how to lead with humility, how to employ this the Ubuntu leadership model. Also come in and talk about just the importance of cultural competency and intelligence and what that looks like and how cross-cultural communication is something that needs to be understood in ways that allow people to fully show up and fully, be seen, culture and all, right? And then I'm also a positive intelligence coach. Oftentimes we believe that all leaders are confident in their leadership, right? But too often, actually, is that a lot of leaders have their inner critics and saboteurs. And
Right.
these saboteurs often is what's keeping them from being the best leaders they can be. And with positive intelligence coaching that I provide for emerging leaders as well as CEOs and executives is getting them to identify what their saboteurs are, their inner critics, and how it impacts their personal as well as their professional wellness and communication, and then their ability to succeed within their corporation or their organization. But how's it impacting your wellness, your performance, and the way that you lead other people? So those
Yeah.
are the key services that I provide, and I speak about those as well.
And it's one of these things, Hermence, like some people will say, oh, leadership, it's such a vague term. What is leadership training? It's woo woo. And why should I care about psychological safety? But for any business person, if you care about your bottom line, if you care
Yeah.
about your shareholders, if you care about your legacy in the organization, you want people to show up at full capacity.
Right.
And the work that you do helps people to show up at full capacity. But I want to jump into something about the positive intelligence
Mm-hmm.
because it's a term that isn't mainstream, at
Right.
least right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about positive intelligence, we think, oh, it's just another package to sell something.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't. I'd like you to explain why we cannot just be one way at home and another way at
Yeah.
work because that's
Yeah.
the root of your work.
Exactly. Exactly. So, it is a mind it's really a mindset shift, right? So if you think about how often people show up at work with this this veil, sometimes I call it a mask, right? Where I have to be perfect and I'm a hyper, I have to show that I'm in control of things, right? That I'm a hyperachiever, always doing things, getting things right. And then there are others who show up with possibly a victim mentality where everyone's out to get me. There's so many ways that we show up in our professional spaces that hinder us from being the best version of ourselves because
Right.
we have taken all this feedback or just noise, right? We have taken the noise around us and created a profile for ourselves.
Do you think that it's, in some cases, people
Hmm.
have developed skills or persona to
Hmm.
protect themselves in a certain environment and it works and then they
Yes.
don't know when to drop it?
Yeah, and it works until. So, and one of the questions I always ask, is this still serving you in this season of your life?
Hmm.
So, and I'll say a lot of leaders have picked up strategies of how to be a leader, personas, right? And they worked at a point in time, right? Being that hyperachiever, that stickler, that controller, it worked at one point in time, right? However, you're not the person you were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So
And
that
neither is the
mindset.
environment the same.
Exactly. You're no longer in that corporation or in that organization. And so that mindset also has to change and has to shift. And
So
so
how do we then make that the initial spark of like, oh, it's time to make a change?
I provide that, I have an assessment that I provide
Okay.
where people are able to identify what's really keeping them stuck or keeping them behind or keeping them in a place that it no longer sits well with them.
Right.
Right. And so that assessment will let you know what your saboteurs are, where your inner critics are, and how it's impacting your wellness and health, how
Yeah.
it's impacting your professional relationships, how it's affecting your personal relationships. And then oftentimes after people, it's a quick assessment. When I meet with them, they're like, wow, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe I
there's
should
like
do
the
something different, right?
grit in the teeth, like,
Yeah,
that's what it is.
exactly, exactly. Because we don't know what we don't know, but we
So true.
feel what is not right.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it can be you used to sleep well and now you're not. It could
Exactly.
be now you're taking headache medicines all the time, or
Yeah,
you have to take blood pressure medicine now.
right.
Those
Yeah,
things can be an indicator that, for you to slow down and say,
exactly.
"Oh, what is
What
this?"
is it? Or things that people would say would just roll off. You'd be like, whatever, that is. And now you're like, now it just, hits you differently now,
Yeah.
right?
And what
And
does that look like in the workplace?
in
So
the
we talked about
workplace,
the headaches and not sleeping, but in the workplace, how does it manifest in
and
the work?
yeah, in the workplace, your temper, it
Yeah.
can be changing how you communicate with people, the tone that you use. It could also mean you not volunteering for opportunities that you would have at any other time would have been the first person to volunteer for. It means you showing up disengaged,
Yeah.
right? Or it could also, a lot of times for leaders, it means you not knowing how to delegate, taking it on for yourself because you want to, and then being exhausted because
Right.
you're
Like,
doing
oh, you have to
everything.
be in all of the meetings.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And at the end, what I'm noticing with a lot of people that I'm coaching, it feels heavy. That's the word I keep hearing. I don't
Mm.
know what it is, but right now everything feels heavy.
Yeah. Like they're carrying the weight
They're
of
carrying the
that
weight.
organization or something on
Hmm.
their shoulders.
Exactly. Or
One of
I've heard people say, I've been doing this for 30 years, but I don't want it anymore.
Now that's something where I think we have to be more honest and be in community about, because it's
Hmm.
fine to have a new chapter and close something
Exactly.
out. In myself, in my career, because I've done many things, I felt like I had enough courage to do that. And then
Hmm.
when I pop out in the world and start doing something different, people who have mentored me, people I have respected, would be like, "Girl, stay in your lane. What are you doing?"
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
after a certain amount of
Yeah.
time, then you start to internalize that.
Very much so. You start limiting yourself, right? Or you start having this idea of imposter syndrome,
Right.
right? And you're like, it and it doesn't feel right. That's what keeps us up at night. That's the monster under the bed that keeps you up at night, right?
Uh-huh.
These thoughts, these reoccurring thoughts of ideas, you're not enough, maybe you shouldn't, why are you doing this? And I always say the saboteurs are louder in your head than your sages. And your sage is like that light inside of you, and that says, you know what, you got this. It's that inner strength that we often don't tap into or we forget because it's not as loud.
Right.
It may not be as loud. And so, when you have these voices around you that are contradicting what your sage is saying, it's exhausting, it's frustrating. And
Right.
positive intelligence, with the coaching, it's allowing you to know that it's okay to be in that phase where you just don't know, but it gives you time, I always say, to pause, to breathe, and to realign with
Yeah.
your sage.
When I was reading some of the comments of people who have gone through positive intelligence with you and they've learned about resilience through working
Hmm.
with you, they do describe it as a transformative experience.
Yeah.
Whereas before they started working with you, they did feel that heaviness or uncertainty. And
Hmm.
through the process of working with you, then they started to find clarity and then they started taking action and they gained momentum.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you a bit more about your latest project, which is a book.
Yeah.
And we were speaking earlier, and you started to tell me the story of your daughter Soleil encouraging you.
Yeah.
So, first of all, your daughter's incredible.
Thank you.
We should
Thank
give
you.
Soleil a shout out.
Yes.
Whenever I see a photo of Soleil or see something, I always think astronaut Soleil.
Yes.
She was itty bitty. Like she's gonna be an astronaut. She wanted to be an astronaut, so that's ingrained in my head.
Right,
Tell us
right.
about astronaut Soleil, what she's up to
You
today, and
know
how she
what?
inspired you.
Yeah, no, astronaut Soleil, she's still wants to be an astronaut somewhat, but now she's really into biology for like biology, seriously,
Yeah.
deep in that. But it's still about being curious about the world. Her mission now is to visit every country, almost every country before she goes to space, because we have to know the planet first, right? Before we can go
Okay.
discover another
Sense.
planet.
I like
And
it.
so she's doing well, and just yesterday we met this young boy. We gave him one of her books because he was a 4-year old that could read, and he's been reading since 2, and it
Your
reminded us
daughter is
of
an author,
Soleil.
published.
Exactly. She's a published author, Pluto special, just the same dwarf planet. And so she has been writing and creating stories ever since she was young. I mean, she published her book at what, 5? And so she's 10 now. And she has papers everywhere. She's been writing,
Hey, let me
creating.
just plug this for a second, Hermence. Y'all, this is before AI.
Exactly.
Soleil actually writes. She was not using an AI tool to help her at age 5.
Exactly, exactly. Just imagination. And so I kept, we were doing, we for a while we were doing book tours and doing all this, and everybody's like, "Oh, don't you get your other book and this?" And she was like, "Mommy, actually, when are you gonna publish your book?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like,
Wow.
"You're always talking about your book. Maybe we can do a book tour together." And I was like, "That'd be great." And so I still didn't do it, still didn't do it. And then she was like, "Well, I'm not publishing another book until you publish yours." And it was a challenge. Like she literally stopped writing. And I was like, "What?" She was like, "I'm not writing anymore." And that was and so I was like, I want my baby to continue writing. So I got to get this book out of me because it was there. I just needed to finish it and have
Right.
the courage to let the world see it. And so my book, Better Than Yesterday, How to Take Intentional Steps to the Self You Envision, is really me bringing together stories, my own as well, but stories of people that I've coached and I've mentored, and that together and really it talks about this oftentimes how the transformation we want in ourselves often we're made to believe is the transformation that someone has given to us, right? It should look like other people's transformation. And so this book is really geared to women who want to just be able to see a version of themselves that was better than yesterday.
Yeah.
I need, just better than, and that means like yesterday I didn't do A, B, and C, but today I'm going to do A, B, right? And that was important for me because there came a time I was pouring into my daughter because she was amazing, pouring into my husband, my work and business, but I was forgetting to pour into myself. And
Hmm.
I started looking in the mirror and seeing a version of myself that just didn't align with my spirit. It was I didn't see I didn't like the reflection that was staring back at me. Not what I looked like physically, but
Correct.
the spirit, like the feeling that came back. And I realized that I needed to do something, but I didn't. All the things I had been trying, going to the gym, just wasn't lasting.
Mm.
And more than anything, I realized that I needed to be honest with myself, and I needed to heal and let go, right? And reconnect and address my saboteurs, inner critics, and let sage be louder. This book was came from like journal entries. I was just started writing and writing. So then someone that I was coaching really just said something to me about how I had helped change their life, and that other people could benefit from what I had, shared with them. And then I was like, you know what? Why not put this all in a book? Because not that I'm giving you the prescription, I'm not saying transform and change your life this way. I'm
Correct.
saying tap into yourself in ways that allows you to come to terms as to how you could see another version of yourself that not so much better than 10 years ago, but better than yesterday. So it's
Yeah.
about short, intentional, small steps. And so for me, the beginning was just simply when I rolled out of bed, telling myself, today I'm loving me first. Like that was an intentional step.
And that's what you mean by letting go and pouring
Yeah.
into yourself.
Hmm.
So I have two questions as a follow up. The first one is, what did Soleil say when you finished your book?
Oh, it was big congratulations. Like she was one of the first people. I was like, look, I uploaded it to Amazon. She was like, congratulations, mommy. Like she was ecstatic. Like we had a celebration. We went out to dinner. Yeah, she was definitely my biggest cheerleader.
And,
And she's read a couple chapters and stuff. And I dedicated, the book to her and generations to come. Just not her, but other generations of women to come. But yeah, she was definitely ecstatic about it.
and your work and your story, what do you think is the shift in you now that you have released the book into the world?
The shift has been like, wow, I'm not alone. Because at the end of the day, what I wanted people to get out of this, or women to get out of this book, is that you're not alone in your transformation. Like
Mhm.
Ubuntu is about growth in community. And I wanted people to understand that one, you can grow internally on your own, but you can also grow in community, and you can grow at your own pace with grace, with forgiveness, right? With self love. And so now that the book has been out there, the pouring and the feedback has allowed me my to better understand that all the noise that was in my head was just noise. It wasn't truth. As you said, the other books that I have sitting in me, oh, they're coming out because now I know that again, my
You
story.
turn that faucet on.
Exactly. And again, it still aligns with my servant leadership style, my my need and feel to serve others, but in the process I'm serving myself as well.
I want to jump back for a second. I feel like we can't wrap this conversation up without talking about the state of global health presently. You're an
Hmm.
expert. You've worked in polio, you've
Yeah.
worked in HIV,
Ebola.
Ebola, and see
Yeah.
what's happening now.
Yeah.
Um, and we've all seen what's happened to our friends at the
Hmm.
CDC in
Hmm.
the past few years. What do you think we can be imagining as a new future? Because those systems have been disrupted. We're not going to go back to old. So, in terms of your strategic insight, what are some of the things that we can start doing to stretch that imagination muscle to envision the next future of global health where we are protected?
Yeah. I think the next future of global health has to be community based. It has to be
And what do you mean
sustainable.
by that?
Community based meaning oftentimes we created programs, right? CDC, Health, WHO, we created programs and then gave it to communities to implement, assuming
Gotcha.
they would. It has to be the other way around. We have to bring community members in, have them create the program, have them, we need to start with the buy in and then
I
bring
agree.
it back and help, give it structure
And capacity
and
building.
capacity.
Yeah.
Because too often we were doing things over and over and over. And
Yep.
then community members felt left out. Think about polio. The pushback with polio was that we rarely took the time to explain or understand why people were resisting, polio vaccination, like the resistance of it, the history in
Mm-hmm.
these countries we were going in. And so we were coming in and we were just teaching and educating community members and thinking, oh, same thing happened with Ebola to a certain extent. We all went pouring into these communities, but a lot of us, honestly, didn't understand the cultural context, didn't understand the resistance, weren't the history of the country, the political systems, the geographic. We didn't understand the countries we were going in and saying, don't touch your loved ones when they die of Ebola. Well, you're going against all cultural norms, burial norms. So I remember when I was sent one of three community health, one of three CDC employees to talk to really encourage community members and health educators, on how to bury their loved ones. I remember thinking, why am I the only one that actually, hmm, like has this experience in communities,
Yeah.
right? It was just one of those things where I'm like, I had so many questions. So I really think there needs to be a stronger partnership, not with the political, not just the political systems in the countries we work in, but with the communities themselves in the countries we work with. And let them create, let them develop the
And then
programs.
the proper space for the
Exactly.
global health experts is then in the
The
capacity.
capacity.
Got it.
And we have to also be open to resistance. Like
Yeah.
there are
It's part of the
communities who,
process.
yeah, especially when it comes to global health, they have found ways to sustain, right? They
Yeah.
have their own medical ways of doing it. And that's why one of the things I really loved when I did Peace Corps is I was, doing health education, talking about how to prevent yourself. And I'll never forget when I chose to partner with village doctors. Some would call witchcraft, some would call them a lot of things. For me, they were village doctors because those were the people
The
that,
folks
that
trusted.
exactly.
Yeah.
I explained to them where I was coming from with my, American Eurocentric idea of what this disease was. And they explained how they are meeting the people where they're at when it comes to this. And then we were able to share. I was able to help protect them from getting sick. And it was a partnership. I saw the
That's it.
humanity and value in their work. And too often we go in as the SMEs, experts, and we don't see the value in the people that we're so called trying to serve.
And that is so true. And I appreciate you sharing that insight as we imagine the future of global
Yeah.
health. Last question. This stunning artwork that is behind you. I've been looking at it the whole time that we're speaking. What is this piece of art? Where did it come from?
So actually, it's from South Africa, and this wonderful artist. I love artwork. My whole house is full of art. And I saw this and it literally said Ubuntu to me.
Wow.
Women gathered together and like it's almost like they're ready to take like to do something, but they're giving themselves time to pause before moving forward. It's this gathering. So as soon as I saw it, I knew that my goal in life is to be one of these women. And that is why I use it as my backdrop, and it's very powerful. And when I and in DRC, someone sold me the actual painting, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm the artist." I was like, "Oh really?" It wasn't until years later when I wanted to use it as a. I looked. I was like, "Wait a minute, he's not the artist."
No way.
So yes, I will get you the name of the artist. But yes, yeah, my favorite, yeah, favorite,
It
because
is. It is beautiful. Thank you
yeah,
for coming to the podcast with that as your backdrop. It's absolutely
yeah.
stunning. How can the winning season community connect with you?
Oh, first they can email me at hermence at ubuntuworkforce.com. So that's
And
my
that's in
email.
the. It's tagged here in the show notes, so
Exactly.
you can just click below and grab that.
Yes. And then also on LinkedIn, of course. So that is the place to really get in touch with me. And I always encourage people, let's do more than just connect on LinkedIn, but connect off of LinkedIn and really have a deeper connection. And so I'm always open for, just 15, 20-minute conversations with individuals who want to know more about the work and my journey, and then how I can support them in their organization.
And where do we find your book and Soleil's book?
Yes, so on Amazon, and I will share the link as well, but it is on Amazon. If you either put my name, Hermence, and then put G Matsotsa, or just put Better Than Yesterday, How To, and then it'll pop right up. But it is on Amazon.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Hermits, thank you. It's truly an honor. Thank
yeah,
you for the work you've done for global health and the communities that you serve. It really does make the world a place where we can all travel and experience because of experts like yourself who
thank
care
you.
and go
Thank
out.
you. Yeah.
So, winning season, fam. Until next time, y'all continue to emulate excellence and eliminate excuses.